Hello and welcome to The Big Fight. There are few things that are more important than the defense of the nation. And that's why in this episode of The Big Fight, we're going to take a look at the overall issue of how our defense has actually been going. Now, just this week, we've had the change in the entire Rafale deal, which was done essentially because the Air Force said we can't wait too much longer. Was that a good decision the way this has happened? And also broadly, what has been happening with India's defense procurement? Have too many acquisitions just been held up in indecisiveness and red tape, and what is the right way to go forward? So that's what we're going to take a close look at. Sambit Patra joining us from the BJP. We have Air Chief Marshal Rafale Major joining us, former Chief of Air Staff. Thanks a lot for joining us. Rahul Bedi is with us as well, one of the country's best known defense journalists. Also here in the studio, we have Air Marshal P.S. Ahluwalia, who is the former AOC in Chief of the Southern and Western Air Command. Ajay Kumar joining us from the Congress Party. Ajay Shukla, well, you're going to represent the army and also be defense analyst, so it's great to have you with us, Ajay, out here. And Vice Admiral Shekhar Sena is the Commander-in-Chief of the Western Naval Command. Thank you so much for being with us as well. Before we take a look at the broader questions around India's defense, let's just start off with the Rafale deal and the way that has changed. Now, Sambit, at the time when originally this was being done, and we had this long procedural way of doing it, it was said that the procedure, the sound procedure, for the first time you had multiple bidding and tendering and all of that happened. And now suddenly all of that has been put aside, and now 36 planes have been bought in a flyaway condition. What is the reason for this?
Vikram, I would say, look, you have introduced the Doyens today in the debate, and I'm a tiny civilian who hardly understands as to what were the procurements, what is a Rafale plane in fact. But whatever little research I have done, something startling is in front of me. And I have the research laid down in front of me. I mean, in fact, the Indian Air Force is down to 34 squadrons today, the requirement being approximately 44 to really deal with China and Pakistan, if we consider them as the ones we have to deal with. And we are looking towards retirement of majority of our fleet. Come 2017, we'll see that the mix.
You're saying that there was no other political reason, because some people said, we wanted a good summit in France, and that's the reason why this had to be done.
It's nothing about summit in France, posturing, it's nothing about that. I believe
India-French
two reasons.
Relations,
as far as the Prime Minister's decision about taking ready-to-fly 36 aircraft was concerned, I believe he broadly saw into two things: national security, number one; number two, cutting off red tapeism, because it was essential that the critical necessity of the army has to be fulfilled. And the critical necessity was to build the Indian Air Force. They had pressed the red button way back in 2000. For all these years, 15 long years, no action. And I believe this is really a bad news.
I'm going to come to that as to what we've been doing with defense procurement, because this is just one case. Actually, if you look at India's defense, many would argue that it's almost systematically been degraded to some extent by our inability to take decisions and take them fast. But just sticking with Rafale, Ajay, you've got on record to say you thought it was a massive blunder.
Yes. The rationale that has been offered, which Sambit just offered, in fact, that 34 squadrons and we need 42 squadrons. First of all, this decision about 42 squadrons, or that we need 42 squadrons, is not cast in stone. We need the defense.
Okay, let's assume it is cast in stone. Let's assume we need more planes.
No. I'm making a very important point. You buy the defense that you can afford. And if you cannot afford 42 squadrons, you make do with less.
Now, just afford not having adequate defense.
One second. These 42 squadrons are not being paid for by China or by Pakistan. They are being paid for by India. And already, yesterday, the defense minister has announced that the Mountain Strike Corps is being cut down to half. Clearly, this money has to come from somewhere. And if you pay...
So you're saying you're taking it away from the army and giving it to the Air Force, and you're wondering why that's happening.
This is not an army or an Air Force thing. What I'm trying to say is this idea that we can justify anything by tossing out figures, 42 squadrons. No, you have a limited amount of money. You buy what you can buy with that money. And if you choose to buy 42 squadrons, that's a decision. But remember that you're then cutting down on the Navy, you're then cutting down on the Army.
Or you'll find money from elsewhere, I guess is the other way of looking at it. But let's go to Air Chief Marshal Major. First of all, what was your take on the Rafale decision now that we need 36 immediately? Ajay's broader point of do we really need so many planes is of course a wider question that we can come to. But this specific decision, do you support it?
I think it's an excellent decision which has been taken keeping in mind, as someone just mentioned, national security and the dying need of the Indian Air Force to bring up their squadron strength.
And you think the Air Force does require those 42
the figure
squadrons?
of 34 squadrons, pardon me?
Yeah, Ajay was questioning whether we really do need 42 squadrons.
Well, force structuring of a service, in this case the Indian Air Force, is done after a huge thought process. And when you talk of 42 squadrons or 44 squadrons, as against the 39.5 authorized earlier, it is to factor in a two-front war. Now, probably you will never ever come to that end at any time. But that is the price a nation pays for national security. That deterrence value, which is very, very essential to keep your likely adversaries at bay. And also, most importantly, this 42 squadron figure has not been arrived at random. It has been arrived after a lot of thought.
Okay.
And if we are to say today that we've got 34 squadrons, let me also say that 34 squadrons in numbers, but given the vintage of most of the aeroplanes and the present serviceability state which exists in the Air Force, probably we are much less than that.
Okay. Ajay, you made another point, which was to essentially say that India's rewarded the Sol for being obstinate, and that other vendors may feel that if you drag on the negotiations long enough, you may get what you want, which is fly away without technology transfer, no offsets, nothing being built in India, which may be what they had wanted in the first place.
That's absolutely correct, because as every novice in defense economics knows, if you buy an aircraft in flyaway condition, it will cost you about 30% less than if you put the onus on the vendor to transfer technology, transfer manufacturing know-how, create a competitor in India, build in India. So this government's logic that we are getting it slightly cheaper, it doesn't hold good. You should be getting it at least 30% cheaper. But more importantly,
we don't know what the
Vikram,
final price is going to
more
be.
importantly, the whole motive of Mr. Modi's defense sort of planning is to make in India. Make in India is going to be this great thing that galvanizes defense industry. We have
This
effectively...
could theoretically still be, at least other planes could still be made in India, perhaps with a private sector partner.
No, he has already ruled out that we will be, he is now talking in terms of, the defense minister is talking in terms of building a light fighter, not the Rafale.
Okay. Air Marshal Ahluwalia.
Actually, let me start by a caveat that the decision on the Rafale is not yet completed. There's so much more to come. So I might say that I'd be speculating, I'll be inferring, and I'll be assuming, although with professional knowledge and with basic logic. First thing, why does the Indian Air Force need this? And that's what these youngsters must know, that the Indian Air Force doesn't work with fresh air and sunshine. There are calculations. These are based on actual conditions, the situation, the threat assessment. And I've done it all my life, so I'm talking not through a pen pusher, but through the practical knowledge. So therefore, when we talk about squadrons, I would say delete that and think of how we need to protect this country, the skies, land and sea, because air power is going to be...
We get that. We get that obviously India has to be secured, but just specifically on where we are right now with our aircraft buying decision. Rafale is there. We're about to develop these new planes with Russia. Tejas is supposed to be indoctrinated.
So at this point in time, what has happened is that the Rafale, the process started in the year 2000, 2001. And just like Mr. Batra has said, that it has taken 15 years and there wasn't any movement forward. So the first thing that the government has taken is a decision. And I'm underlining this word decision, because in our country, we lack decision makers. And we are going to get 36 aircraft. That's a good start, because these 36 will come within 2 years, and it will give you a head start in all your potential.
Can they build 36 in 2 years? There's some question about whether the Sol has the ability to actually... They're right now producing one plane in a month.
Let me clarify. I bought the first Mirage 2000s for India.
Yes.
I'm quite aware of what the process is. I've been to these factories in Bordeaux, Mérignac, I've been Montmartre, Dijon. The factories
so you're reasonably confident they can build them?
No, I can tell you that they can divert what is going to the French Air Force, perhaps even what is going to Egypt, will be diverted to India.
I want to know what the Egyptians have to say about that.
Yeah,
but-
we'll
Okay,
see about
fine.
that.
Did you share Ajay's assessment that one service will benefit at the cost of the other services? Although the Navy is seeing a lot of acquisitions, not just the Vikramaditya. We just saw the Vishakhapatnam being inducted.
Well, let me just give you a little background because of some experience in the Defence Acquisition Council and the IDS headquarters as the head. You know what Air Marshal Ahluwalia was saying, the process of calculation begins with the environment scan, the threat perception, and it is made with great care. All the academicians, the foreign service, the embassies, the service headquarters, the intelligence agencies, and we come out with a environment scan. Then who are our specialists? Army, Navy and the Air Force. And they are told that this is the environment which is likely to exist for next 15 years, subject to change. So would you tell us what will happen if we have to maintain a credible defense? And this calculation is based on those parameters. And therefore, I don't think there should be any debate as to.
So Vice Admiral, let's move on from that. I mean, let's say we've assumed this is the ships that we need, and here are these are the number of tanks that the Army requires, and here are the aircraft that are required. Now let's come to the modalities of it. So specifically on Rafale, and you, of course, you were a member of the Defence Acquisition Council. For a long time, there was a feeling that tendering is the right way to go about it, and that's what happened with the CRA. Now it's almost being said that government to government might be a better idea. What's your take on that?
My take is, look, I am a naval aviator as well, and I have flown most of my life. The point is that if it started in 2001 and the force levels keep reducing, well, 36 is not the requirement, but the requirement is 126. So if you get 36, at least for the immediate, you can fill up some void. Whether all are required, how they will be acquired, is all that is a matter of speculation, because it is not yet out in the public.
Vikram, just a second. Vikram, since this question has been asked twice by you, whether tendering was the best procedure or the G2G was the best procedure, I would say what exactly Mr. Parikar in his interview recently to a newspaper has said, that well, yes, you can never compare aircrafts in the way they have been tried to compare, because you may have the right combat angle, you may have the right kind of flying, but at the end of it, it also depends on the missiles mounted on the
But I'll tell you what's behind. I'll tell you what's causing a lot of this. Hang on. I just want to come to this issue, Samit, in some detail. So I just pause a bit. Rahul Bedi, we do have you on. Have you right now? I just wanted to get your take on the Rafale decision.
Firstly, I think one must realize that the Rafale decision to buy 36 aircraft is logistically, economically, and operationally, and even doctrinally going to be a problem, provided more do not come. There's already talk, as Ajay Shukla said, of buying a single engine fighter, which a lot of people seem to assume is going to be the Saab Gripen. So I don't know what
You're saying we shouldn't have two platforms, Rahul, is what you're saying. You can't have 36 of one and 36 of another, because it's very difficult to maintain that.
Well,
you need more of a certain one type.
Exactly. The Air Force already operates 7 different kinds of fighters, and I think most of the people on the panel are just sort of dancing around the problem. And when Air Chief Marshal Major says that we're going to fight a 2-front war, I mean, who are we fooling? And because the state of military preparedness of all 3 services is very, very questionable. And I think the Rafale decision is going to play out in time as something that we just might end up regretting.
Vikram, I think one context point. I think I agree with Rahul when he says that everybody is bouncing around. Let me just give you the context in which this decision has been taken. Like Air Marshal Ahluwalia just pointed out, in 2001, the BJP decision, the BJP government at that time decided that the Air Force, which had said we want a single vendor procurement of Mirage 2000s, was talking rubbish. They ordered a multi-vendor procurement. The same government's predecessor government at that time ordered a multi-vendor procurement. Today, 15 years later,
but that's because we haven't got anywhere in 15 years.
One second. The same BJP government is now saying multi-vendor is a bad idea. It was its own idea. Second point.
You can always recognize the idea as a bad idea.
Second point. No, the more important point. Listen, get the context right.
Yeah.
The reason why you needed 126 Rafales to be made in India was because while we had made the Tejas and we were going to make the 5th generation fighter with Russia, we needed a bridging capability. We needed to learn how to do high-tech manufacture, and therefore we were going to manufacture these Rafales and build that capability. By now removing this concept of make in India,
But who's removed
by
it?
sort of
Who has removed it exactly?
no, all of these people are hiding behind the fact that they're saying that there are going to be more Rafales, but there are going to be no more Rafales.
One sec. First question is, there's nobody denying that you need aircraft, right? It's the cost in which you're doing and the way you're doing it. And I think the Bharatiya Janata Party government has been misleading the people. There's no intergovernment agreement. There's only two intergovernment agreements, one with the United States and one with Russia. So the Prime Minister definitely misled on saying there was an intergovernment agreement. Second issue is, you are offset, you promised to bring 50% of offset, make in India, is make in France. Dassault was a company which was going in loss. And they manufacture, I mean, with all the distinguished people, no, they manufactured, one second, they manufactured 12 planes per year at the max. In 2 years, 36, they're going to divert it from France to give it to India from Egypt.
Okay, let me just come to the experts.
No, but become the most important. I think no, one sec. Mr. Parikar said that we will reconsider it. Suddenly, Mr. Parikar, because Big Boss has said it, and he wants to keep her to the NRI constituency happy. You sacrifice the future of this country.
No, can I ask you a question? Hang on. We may not have
been in this C-130. No, and look at they have Alzheimer's. We bought C-130. We bought Ariane nuclear submarines. BJP thinks that the nation was born on the 17th of May 2014.
Excuse me, wait. I'm
going to
come to the broader question.
Was coming.
Once I finish with the Rafale,
we had no defense.
Ajay, can I interrupt you in full flow?
We had the worst defense. They were the guys who created it.
Ajay, can I interrupt you in full flow? I'm going to ask you this bleeding question as to what happened for 10 years, why we were not making more acquisitions.
But we went through a process.
Because
Yashwant Sinha objected that the life cycle cost of the Rafale.
The fact is we did nothing for 15 years, right?
Which is why we are in the situation that we are. Look at C-130. We went through intergovernment contracts.
Did you buy any artillery pieces?
No.
Did you buy a plane?
Can I tell C-130?
What did you do? You did nothing for 10 years.
One second, we brought in a process. These guys
had
thrown the process.
Only the process ran, nothing came.
No, let me tell you one thing. The process of the lowest tender, which is interesting. So they're not going by the lowest tender. They've thrown it. They've not even said whether the RFP is cancelled. This smells. It smells. This whole deal smells. Because the method which was involved.
I want to counter him point by
Vikram,
point. Just a second, sir. Give me some time
Vikram,
to counter the Congress point.
I want to come back.
We have had two anti-government views. Let me in fact articulate the government's views. Number one, to say that the clause of make in India has been removed is absolutely wrong. The deal is still on. And the defense minister has said that wait and watch, the deal is still on. One part of the deal, that 36 working on planes have been acquired, is only one part of it. The second, I was not interrupting anyone. Can we just have, can we be allowed to speak?
Somebody is right, you are contradicting the defense minister who seemed to say that the rest of the deal is gone.
No, it's not
that.
If
we are confused, we are right to be confused.
That the deal is still, I mean, the other part of the deal is on. Let us wait and watch. That's what he has said. Second, what is this happening?
Look, I'm not surprised everyone's confused because we can't even hear ourselves here.
Second part, the most important part, what the Congress spokesperson had been saying, that they were the ones who started with the deal. Well, yes, the defense minister had been categorical in bringing out the facts of the deal, where he mentioned that the RFP, that is the request for proposal, was itself flawed. And if you read into the statement of the previous defense minister,
but you still bought the same plane.
Can you please allow me to complete?
Brilliant.
Vikram, this is not the way. You had to pay penalties, hefty penalties if you had to cancel this RPF, and the defense minister has made this clear. You would have drained the exchequer's money if the corrupt RPF filed by your government, corrupt RPF filed by your government would have been cancelled. So I would say why this is a big corruption by the Sonia government, and this is the reason. Just a second. Allow me to complete this sentence.
Ajay and Sambit,
just one sentence of Antony. The sentence was, Mr. Antony in the RPF mentions, in the record mentions that he allows that the price negotiation with the L1, that is the lowest bidder, should go on, but thereafter how the L1 was granted should be investigated. That means he himself was not convinced how the lowest bidder was available.
Sorry, Matsyamalya, I'm going to interrupt both of you.
This is a matter of investigation.
I'm going to interrupt both
Facts
of
on the
you.
table.
I'm going to interrupt both of you. What you have just said and what you have just said is exactly the reason why I think India's defense is suffering. The reason is, why is it that we cannot take a decision? Why is it that we cannot procure anything? Because if they go ahead with a particular acquisition, you just said it was a corrupt deal.
Yes.
He said something is smelling because you're buying the Rafale. Now, if this is the process we're going to, can we first, I'm going to pause all other discussions. I would like to get all the experts on this panel. Can we try and agree on what is the right way to purchase defense equipment? Because otherwise, we will go back to what is happening under Mr. Anthony. Mr. Anthony was so concerned about what you have just said, this is a corrupt process, that we ended up doing nothing. Hang on.
But the issue was
in this case, we have waffled over this plane for the last 15 years, I don't know how long we've been waffling. We haven't bought anything. There's no plane which
But this is for 40 years for future of Indian Air Force. And they happily went and did it without any applying their mind.
60 long
40 years.
This
So,
60
one
years,
at a
this
time.
country was born on 17
One at a
2015.
time.
Sambit
One
Patnaik
at
was
a
born
time.
on 2015.
Can we set the politics aside for a minute? Can we set the
Come
politics
on.
aside? Look, this
Both
is the defense.
countries moved so much.
This is the defense of the country. So let's set politics aside for just for a minute. I'm going to start with you, Air Chief Marshal. Can I get each of you to try and say what is the right way in which we should do this? Because otherwise, we're going to go on repeating the problems of the past. If the BJP buys a plane right now, the Congress will say this is a corrupt decision. If tomorrow there's a Congress government and they do it, the BJP will say the same. Now, we have had a process where we used to be buying things by government to government. Then we said that's corrupt because there's no tendering. Then we went to tendering. Now we've said that's wrong. It was inefficient. It didn't work. Now we are back to government to government. What's the right way to do this? Air Chief Marshal Major.
Vikram, in my opinion, the right way to go is to identify and select a particular strategic or important military platform, whether it be, if it is not being indigenously made, of course, right? Select one and go in for a government-to-government deal and leave everybody else out of it. Because what happens in and the Indian Air Force has had excellent examples in terms of the C-17, the C-130,
can I just
the
understand
BBJ.
That? Sir, one thing, can I just understand that? You seem to be saying, let the Air Force decide which plane it wants, let the Navy decide its ships and the Army decide its systems. Once that decision is taken, then the government should get in and try and figure out the cheapest way to buy it. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
And there will not be, that will not lead to allegations of corruption or why this or why that.
Absolutely.
As Chief of Air
because there will
Staff,
be no middlemen, there will be nobody.
No, but why? Why are you saying that? Because, I mean, as Chief of Air Staff or whoever the chiefs are, they will feel that pressure that if I say this is a better system than that system, tomorrow somebody will come and say you made money on this. Why did you pick this and not that?
Vikram,
Well, if that guy indeed has made money, hang him on Raisina Hill.